Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Roseberry. I'm going to talk to you today about a big subject because it's a subject that would change everything for everyone if we can do this one thing, and that's called forgive. So I am a medical intuitive, nutritionist, and healer. And I facilitated a group, and the group is called the Pure Conscious Community, and we do a bi-monthly virtual healing circle. And we pick the topic of forgiveness. I should say I communed with the universe, and that's what we've decided. um and by the way, this topic on forgiveness is going to be a little bit more lengthy, I'm anticipating, than my typical videos. And this video goes out to Erin Regan. She's probably chuckling right now, but she was supposed to attend the healing circle and couldn't make it. She actually is the editor of my first book called Wake Up, I Am the Cure. So I'm dedicating this recording to her because she missed the group. And I wanted to do this anyway, so here we are. So the topic of forgiveness. let me first say that I want to really make light of this subject matter because there is an enormous amount of seriousness around it, which is interesting in and of itself from someone who loves studying the consciousness of, or the evolution of consciousness of humanity. So the seriousness is part of the problem, and it keeps us stuck. It keeps us in resistance, all of which is in hindrance to the flow of the chi, we'll call it, using a fancy word. I really don't care about fancy, but the energy that flows in the body is supposed to do just that. So think of a stream and think of how that should flow. And then think about some boulders and some debris that fall into the stream and hinder that flow. Those types of things we would call resistance, and we would call unforgiveness for the sake of this conversation. We would also call the stuff in the way of the flow as unfelt feelings. So resistance to feeling certain feelings. Now that's a mouthful. One book that I highly recommend to help elaborate on this concept, and any of the works of Dr. David Hawkins, the book is called Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins, and it's the power, I think it's Letting Go, the Power of Surrender, something like that. But any of his work gets into this subject of forgiveness. You can't not talk about forgiveness when you talk about healing. They're actually synonymous. So I have a little bit of it. I have some keynotes that I have written down from the workshop from the healing circle that we just did. So I'm going to be, the way that I usually teach is different things pop into my head and I go in a million directions. So bear with me. But that's the general premise. Now, for a healthy human being, we want to be in this flow, and I'm going to extract some of what Eckhart Tolle talks about, which is in his book, The Power of Now, which is it in a nutshell, right? We want to, so I'm going to merge those two descriptions together. He talks about the what I like to describe as a sphere, which is us. So we are all maybe micro planets, if you want to think of it that way. And we have this non-physical, you know what? I'm not even sure if it's non-physical. from our perception of you, it looks non-physical. But we have this energy field around us. So think of all of us as these micro planets. And if we could perceive consciously everything, meaning everything now, meaning no past, no future, we are 100% present to this moment, then we are in our power. As a frozen, and this is described from Barbara Brennan, we have like this frozen consciousness within this planetary sphere. Frozen meaning it's locked into the story of what something that took place and the consciousness of that time frame. So for instance, very classic, very typical of the human experience is a childhood event gets frozen, and yet the rest of us evolves as an adult, and we still get this frozen piece of us from when we were 3 that gets poked every once in a while. And when that part of us gets poked, we bring up everything right back like we were 3. Okay, so that's now let's go a little further. So now, how do we heal this frozen part of us at 3? As a for instance, we would usually, the universe does a fine job at poking at that to say, to heal that, right? So that's called a trigger. We see something that pokes at our consciousness and pokes at us, and so we go into a trigger response. What that means is we go back to that time period and we don't even realize it. And then usually we don't even realize that that was a gift, that shitty thing that just happened that poked at our 3-year-old, that was a gift to say, hey, let's, a little nudge, hey, let's heal that 3-year-old trauma already. Okay, let's do it. But if you don't have the awareness, you're not going to see it from the point of view that I'm sharing, which is why I'm sharing it. So you would take that little poke, and maybe you would do the emotional freedom technique. That's a technique that was founded by, what's his name, Gary Craig. I hope I'm saying that right. Go to emofree.com for more information about the emotional freedom technique. And it helps us to take these layers of emotions off of this energy of that stuckness that I was talking about, so we can be in the present moment, because that's the name of the game. So EFT is just one example. I'm just trying to give you the mechanism. But so let's just take 2020. Man, that still triggers me. Let's just take all the events of 2020 and look at it from the viewpoint of, it was meant to trigger the shit out of us to heal us, because we had all this stuff that needed to be healed and we weren't doing it consciously and we weren't doing it deliberately. So the universe again gave us a gift and said, slapped us around to get our shit together so that we can evolve into the Aquarian age, into an age of love. But we can't be in a loving place if we have all this other crap that's buried in the closets and under the rugs. So this was a perfect design, even though it doesn't feel very perfect. So we understand, just to recap, you understand that we have this topic of unforgiveness. Think of it as as these frozen pieces within our psyche, the metaphor of the debris in the stream. And now I'm going to go a little bit deeper as to the why and the what about it. In the book, Letting Go, Dr. David Hawkins talks about the mechanism of letting go. Now, the mechanism of letting go is simply to feel our feelings. What a concept. Just feel your feelings. then you can move beyond them, and then you can be in the present moment. What most of us do, because we're not conscious, because we're distracted, because we don't understand who and what we are, we don't feel our feelings all the way through, and they must be felt through. I'm going to repeat that. Your feelings, all of them, must be felt through. So think of, I'll give you another analogy. Think of letting air out of a balloon. Okay, it must come out. It must. If it doesn't come out, we could call that a heart attack. We can call that an anger explosion, where someone just, loses their shit. We've all seen it. And, but yet we have, I believe, and I don't fully understand it yet, but we are supposed to feel these emotions through. It is part of our the mechanism of the human experience. And when they're not felt through, they go in the unconscious mind and they hang around for another opportunity, but they will be felt through. And if they are not, we get disease. And if they are not, we will die. Okay? That's the long and the short of it. Now, I guess one would say, what I've just kind of alluded to was, if we just felt our feelings, then we would live forever. I'm not an expert, but I guess supposedly that's what just came out of my mouth. I don't know if there's any validity to that. Back to the subject matter. So, feeling our feelings, it's very complicated, apparently. Americans especially don't do such a good job at feeling their feelings. But I am making light of this topic of forgiveness intentionally, because it is just that simple to feel your feelings. And then you will be in your power, and then you will be forgiven. You will have forgiven yourself. All right. If you're interested, there is also, you can do a search. It's called the Pillar of Forgiveness, and it is a mini workshop that the Avatar course put together to go into detail about forgiveness. I want to touch upon also another fun little thing about forgiveness. And I feel, I said earlier, it's the opposite of, I referenced it to seriousness. I find, now again, I'm making light of this, but I'm not. And please I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Oh, I was raped. Oh, so-and-so was murdered. I don't want to hear it. I'm talking about the mechanism of forgiveness. Yes, you need to heal the rapist. You need to heal yourself. All of that's true. You need to forgive the murderer. All of that's true. I am intentionally being very simple about this. Nothing changes because of the intensity of what you needed to feel. Okay, so let's talk about what I was getting about with the seriousness. I find that people who need to forgive, or who have a hard time forgiving, are needing to feel special. They are needing attention. I'm not mocking that. We all need to do this, myself included, but I just want to bring to light what feels true when you really dive into the human experience, that people that hold unforgiveness are looking for attention. Why is that important? Because I'm going to talk about what I've learned also from listening to Dr. Hawkins and Eckhart Tolle. When you hear someone's sob story, yes, you need to hear it. And yes, it's sad. And yes, it sucks. And you want to be compassionate and understanding to that person. You want to be loving, etc. Of course, you want to have that human connection, of course. let's say the same person is 5 years later still taking out their violin, and I'm mocking them now at this point because it's 5 years later, and they're still using that as an excuse not to be in their power and not to be happy. So every time you choose consciously, and I'm obviously there's a distinction between the conscious and unconscious. Every time you consciously choose to not forgive someone or something, you are saying, this is why I can't be happy now. This is why I cannot be in my power now. Okay, so what someone who loves themselves, sorry, the screen was shaky. When someone loves themselves, they have the capacity to forgive themselves and others. But most of the time, this subject matter is so difficult because what it means is to give myself my power back, I need to have a certain level of self-esteem and self-love, self-worth. Okay. So we have a deficit of self-worth and self-love and self-esteem on this planet. Hence why we had 2020. Okay. Anyway, so that's why this is so difficult, is because people want to hold on to their stories to get attention, to feel special, and they don't feel that they deserve to let the subject matter go because they don't love themselves enough. Because if they actually let it go, they would have to be happy, and that's scary. Well, gee, I can't use that excuse anymore to explain why I'm not. And this is where I love my job. It's so much fun. When you get into the fears of, okay, let's use me as an example. I don't want to start this new business endeavor because I have, because I'm scared. So now in my brain, I will create this distraction of this person who violated me in some way so now I have this excuse and I can milk that and milk that for years. And that's why I can't be happy. And that's why I can't start this business. Meanwhile, deep in the truth of that is you're scared. You're scared to start the business. You're scared. You don't think you're good enough. You don't think you'll be successful. So you see, this is how human psychology works. It's insane. We're all insane. So I want to talk another piece about forgiveness, because it is a gift to give us our power back, right? It's a gift of love to ourselves so that we can have all of our wits about us and all of our power about us to operate fully. But we have to surrender feeling or being a victim. Because what does unforgiveness do is remember that attention that I was explaining, it's going to give us attention. We're going to get all this sympathy and compassion. Oh, poor victim, 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 victim. Ugh. Okay. The other piece about unforgiveness is that what you're saying is, I know better than God. In fact, I'm a better judge than God. And this person needs to be punished. Isn't that a fun perspective? That person needs to be punished. I was wronged. So there's pride in there, there's judgment in there. But what there's also in that scenario of not wanting to forgive is there is a distrust in karma, that God, or whatever word you want to use for God. I hate that I have to use that as a disclaimer. I don't know how long I'll be doing that. But that person that did blah, 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 God's going to handle them in God's own timing, and that's just the law of karma, right? And we can trust in that. But if you have a human perspective of God, or and you don't trust a higher power, then you're going to think, well, if I let go of this and I don't hate this person anymore, then they're not going to suffer, and I need to make sure that they suffer, as if God's not got it all under control and under wraps, right? So we are playing God and we're playing a judge, and it's an act of holding on forgiveness, is an act of wanting revenge and being vengeful. It's justified hatred, another 2020 theme, right? So much hatred, my Lord. And so I think I've covered all I wanted to cover today. So in surrendering all of unforgiveness towards others, the perceived others, because the reality is what I had just said, is that we have these experiences outside in the world as opportunities to heal us within, because it's completely a projection. So healing, forgiving yourself really is the long and the short of it. The self-love piece is really the long and the short of it, because the world is a reflection of you. So how about healing and forgiving internally this being? So when you see out into the world, that's a reflection of what's going on internally, right? That's the name of the game. Okay, I could go on and on. If you have questions, comments about what the heck I just said, because I don't even know what I just said, I'll have to review it. I'm sure I missed some things. I'm sure I could elaborate on some things. I have no idea what you need, what you don't need. If you'd like to call me and set up an appointment, I do a 15-minute free reading for people over the phone. I work over the phone for people as a healer. I'd be happy to do that for you. Or if you would like to be a part of the next virtual healing circle, that'll take place. Right now, we meet on a 2 Tuesdays out of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You could sign up, just email me and I'll put you on the list and give you the information, and you can be a part of that. The subjects change all the time. And yeah, I'm here to help. So have a great day. Thanks for listening. And I hope this was helpful. And I hope that you can forgive yourself once and for all and live your life and be happy and be in your power, because that's what it's all about. Okay, thank you. I'm Rebecca Roseberry. I call myself the Health Fairy, but that is nor here nor there. My company is Pure Nutrition, and that's it. Thank you.